drums.
Yeah.
So when I was 6 years old, my mom bought me this little half-size guitar at a yard sale in Woodstock. And I loved that guitar. I spent hours fooling around on it. And she got a woman named Maxine to come over, and Maxine showed me 3 chords I could play with my one little 6-year-old finger. And if you've ever been to an open mic, you know that there's hundreds of songs you can play with 3 chords and one finger. So I learned hundreds of songs, and I got bigger, and I got a bigger guitar, and I was in love with the guitar. I just played it for hours and hours and hours. And when my mom got really sick of hearing every single Joan Baez song every single day, she got me lessons with a guitar master who came to the house and taught me all these different American guitar styles, folk and bluegrass and ragtime and country and blues. And what I really loved was the blues. And I started playing in coffee houses and basket houses in the village and parties and hootenannies and wherever I could. I just was there with my guitar. And one day I saw a little ad in the Village Voice, and it said, "Wanted blues singers, Red Robin Records," and an address in the Bronx. And I figured, what the heck? And I grabbed my guitar and I took the subway to the very end, and I took a bus out to the projects, and I wandered around wondering which cluster of buildings I needed to go to and which building in the cluster, and I finally found the right building, and I went up, and the door to the apartment was open, so I went in, and I remember the apartment was very sparse. There was just like a bridge table with some papers on it, and a couch with a huge woman sitting on it. And she looked at me kind of sideways with my braces and my pink pointy glasses. And she said, "Well, okay, what do you got?" And so I took out my guitar and I played her my rendition of "Rock Me Baby," which I sort of knew what it was about. And I had really, this was something I practiced all the time, so I could do the bass and the melody at the same time, and I was cooking, and her eyebrows went up, her jaw went down, and she said, "Leroy, come on in here. Come on, you gotta see this." Leroy comes in and she goes, "Go ahead, do something else." So I did my version of, what was it? It was "Key to the Highway," which I had arranged myself. It was like, and then I finished that and she said, "Have you got other stuff?" I said, "Oh yeah, lots of stuff." "Blues?" "Yeah, blues, lots of blues." She said, "You want to make a record?" I was like, "Yes, I want to make a record." Oh boy. She said, "Okay, let's make a record." And she handed me, she said, "Here, look at this." It was like a 2-page contract. And I'm looking at it, and she says, "Wait a minute, how old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm almost 17. And she said, "Well, you're gonna have a parent sign this contract for us to, make it real." I said, "Okay." She said, "Take it home, come back when you have it signed, and we'll make a record." I flew home. I was so excited. I could see this wonderful life of music unfolding before me. It was all I ever wanted. And I got home and I showed my mom the contract, and she barely read it. She just shook her head. She said, "No." And I felt like somebody had kicked me in the gut, and the room went black. I could not deal with the disappointment and heartbreak that I was feeling. So I stuffed it down. I just pushed it down because I really couldn't deal with it. And I didn't tell anybody about this. I didn't even tell my sister, and I tell my sister everything. And I got on with my life, and I stayed with the music. And at one point, I was feeling like, I'm working really hard at this stuff and I'm not getting the results I wanted. So I hired a career consultant that I heard was really good with indie artists such as myself. And during one of our sessions, she asked me, she said, what do you feel is holding you back from accomplishing the things you want? And up bubbled this experience from high school, just bubbled right up to the top. And I told her about it. And I also told her that she was the first person I had ever told this to. And I also told her that I wasn't sure that it had really happened. That's how successfully I had mashed this thing down and built a wall around it so it couldn't hurt me. And she was stunned. She said, oh my God, you haven't processed this ever. You've got to deal with this. You've got to start talking about it and deal with it. And I realized she was right. So I started talking to people about it and I started writing about it. And I realized I had to go see my mother. So I went to see my mother, who at that point had been bedridden for over a year, and we all knew she was not getting up. And I said, Mom, I have to ask you something. Did this happen? Did this really happen when I was in high school? And she said, she took a deep breath and she said, yes, that happened. And I'm sorry. Well, I got this huge flood, first of relief that it had actually happened and that I hadn't made it up. And then a rush of sadness, and then more relief, and then more sadness. And I felt all the walls inside me crumbling around that grave I had stuffed this in. Well, my mother didn't live long enough to see me get a record contract the following year. But I know that if she had been alive, she would have been very happy for me. Thank you.